Welcome to my Sacred Revenge channel, where betrayal isn't just exposed, it's answered.
The piercing buzz of my phone at 3:35 in the morning yanked me from a deep sleep. It was a bank alert, the kind that usually means a large transaction or perhaps a fraudulent one. As soon as my eyes registered the numbers on the screen, every ounce of air seemed to rush from my lungs, leaving me gasping in the pre-dawn quiet. My account, once a testament to years of meticulous saving and hard work, now displayed a chilling figure: negative $45,516.21. That much money simply vanished. I bolted upright in bed, my gaze locked on the glowing digits, hoping against hope that if I blinked enough times, the nightmare would dissolve. It didn't. Before I begin telling you my story, let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and if you'd like to share your own story, feel free to write to us. My name is Serafina Vance. If you're reading this, please keep listening. I want to share with you an event that irrevocably altered the course of my life. It all began with that single devastating number. That number, stark and unforgiving, laid bare a painful truth about my family, a truth I desperately wished I had uncovered years earlier. Its entire ordeal unfolded during the week of my 32nd birthday. I didn't waste a single moment. My hand, trembling slightly, reached for my phone, and I dialed my father's number. He answered, his voice tinny, on speakerphone. In the background, I could hear the faint thrum of music and my mother's carefree laughter. As if nothing in the world was amiss. "Hey, Dad," I began, my voice tighter than I intended. "Something's seriously wrong with my account. My card is completely maxed out. Did something happen?" There was a brief, pregnant pause, a silence that stretched taut before his voice finally cut through, laced with irritation. "You're always so dramatic, Serafina. The family needed help. Your mother had an unexpected medical procedure." I sat there, stunned, the words hanging in the air. "Your brother's work vehicle broke down, and the house payments were overdue," he continued, a defensive edge to his tone. I simply couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind reeled. Why didn't you just ask me? I finally managed to ask the question, a whisper against the rising tide of disbelief. He didn't even hesitate. "We don't need to ask. You owe us." Then my mother's voice chimed in, sharp and dismissive, punctuated by a cold, humorless laugh. "Besides," she added, "what were you going to do with all that money? Buy yourself some frivolous cake and candles. We had far better plans for it." A profound, aching silence descended, heavy and suffocating. That silence, more than anything, became the final birthday gift they ever bestowed upon me. I took a slow, deliberate breath, steadying myself. "Then don't ever call me again," I stated, my voice calm, almost detached, and I meant every single word. I ended the call, the click echoing in the stillness of my room, and immediately went to work. I logged into every single financial account I possessed and meticulously reviewed every automatic payment. I scrutinized every agreement and contract I had ever signed. They operated under the assumption that because I was the responsible one, the one who had managed to build a stable life, they had an unending right to take from me. But that night, a profound shift occurred within me. I made a resolute decision. I would become the one who severed the ties. The mortgage, which was inexplicably in my name because my mother's credit couldn't secure approval, was canceled. The very next day, before noon, my brother's repossessed work vehicle was towed away. My bank had flagged the transactions as unauthorized use, and I offered no argument, no defense. My sister's student loans, for which I had co-signed, were frozen as I withdrew my support due to financial stress. Quietly, systematically, I began to detach myself from every single obligation and connection that bound me to them. There were no dramatic confrontations, no screaming matches, no grand pronouncements, just a series of calm, deliberate steps away. All the pain, all the betrayal, I channeled into decisive action, into clean, clear boundaries. Their self-serving birthday present, their act of brazen theft, became the precise moment they lost me for good. The following morning, my phone erupted, blazing with a barrage of missed calls and urgent messages. Text after text poured in, some laced with fury, others filled with bewildered questions. Then, almost immediately, the tone shifted, turning saccharine and falsely sweet. One message read, "Serafina, the work vehicle is gone. What's going on?" Another pleaded, "Darling, did something happen with the house payment? The bank says it's in default. Just call us, honey. We're family." Family. That word, a hollow echo, only seemed to matter to them when their carefully constructed world began to crumble. Where was that sacred word when they drained my bank account? Where was it when they exploited me without a flicker of remorse or a single request? I didn't respond to a single one of their desperate pleas. I was far too preoccupied. That entire day, I dedicated myself to freezing my credit. I changed every single password, contacted every company and agency, and methodically removed myself from anything that tethered me to them. I was meticulously severing the cords they had exploited for years, cords they had taken for granted. They had forgotten something profoundly important about me. I wasn't merely a kind person. I was the one in control. My name was on the vehicle. My name was on the house. I was the cosigner, the contingency, the emergency contact. They had used me like an inexhaustible debit card, believing that my love for them guaranteed an endless supply of resources. But this wasn't just about the missing $45,000. It was about the shocking ease with which they had committed the act. There was no flicker of guilt, no hint of second thoughts. They didn't even bother to ask. They had callously ruined my 32nd birthday with their cold, selfish choices. These were the very individuals who had supposedly taught me the meaning of love. But now, that love felt like a hollow fabrication, as if they had sold me a fabricated dream and then, without my consent, forged my signature at the bottom of the contract. I scrolled back through old messages from the previous winter holiday. "We're so proud of you, kid. You're a real success story. We don't say it enough, but you're our miracle." I used to shed tears of gratitude when I read those words. Now I felt nothing but a profound emptiness. If I was truly a miracle, why did they treat me like an ATM with a pulse? So I did to them precisely what they had done to me quietly, deliberately. I disconnected everything. I severed every single tie, while their calls and texts continued to flood my phone, filled with increasingly desperate pleas. I finally took a deep, liberating breath. For the very first time in my life, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix everything. I wasn't the perpetually available helper. I was the impenetrable wall they could no longer bypass. And I wasn't finished. Yet, by Saturday, their desperation had reached a fever pitch. They arrived at my apartment. I watched unseen through the peephole. My father paced on the small porch, his face flushed with anger, striding back and forth as if he still owned the place. My mother, in a loud leopard print sweater, sobbed theatrically, her wails louder than the insistent ringing of my doorbell. But I didn't open the door. I didn't utter a single word. I allowed them to rage and yell through the closed door. Their screams and shouts were just meaningless noise to me. Yelling, I had learned, holds no weight when it's stripped of. Respect, they lingered outside for what felt like an eternity, about 12 minutes banging on the door, pleading with me to listen. Even resorting to desperate threats. "Serafina, you're ruining everything. We trusted you. How could you do this to your own family?" I remained seated calmly on my couch, sipping coffee from a mug they had gifted me 2 birthdays ago. It bore the ironic inscription, #OneDaughter. Funny, wasn't it? I didn't answer. The door, I waited until the cacophony ceased, until their footsteps retreated down the path. Then I opened my laptop and composed one final email to my lawyer. It was all there, a complete and total disconnection from them. I formally revoked any power of attorney, severed all remaining financial links, and dissolved every shared responsibility. This meant no more family phone plan paid for by me. No more sharing my premium streaming services that I had paid for over 7 years. No more utility bills under my credit, especially since my mother's credit history meant she couldn't qualify on her own. I shut it all down. Later that same afternoon, I saw a new post from my mother on social media. It was one of those vaguely emotional, passive-aggressive messages. It read, "It's always the ones you love most who hurt you the deepest." She hadn't tagged me, but I knew with absolute certainty it was aimed at me. Her friends flooded the comments section. "You raised her too soft. She owes you everything. Kids today are so entitled." Entitled. I had given them everything. Not because I was obligated to, but because I genuinely believed in the sanctity of family. I believed love meant helping, supporting, and always being present. But they had warped that beautiful idea of family into a cruel weapon, using it to extract from me again and again. That night, I changed my phone number. Before I powered it off for good, I left one final voicemail on their old numbers. "You chose your comfort over honesty," I stated, my voice steady. "You shattered the trust I spent years meticulously building. Now you can rebuild your lives without me." Then I blocked every single one of their numbers. There was no dramatic goodbye, no intricate revenge plot, just a profound, echoing quiet. The same quiet they had imposed on me every time they took something without asking. But now, for the first time, that silence belonged entirely to me. The next day, a text message popped up from my cousin, Felicity. "Did you really shut off the gas at your parents' house, Serafina? It's freezing. They have no heat." I stared at the message for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the keyboard before I finally typed out my reply. I didn't shut it off. I just stopped paying for it. There was no immediate response, just those 4 small pulsating dots indicating she was typing. Then nothing. That silence resonated, deeper than any insult, any accusation. Later that day, an email arrived from my mother. It was from a random address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Please read this." The email itself began, "We didn't raise you to be like this." I didn't open it. I didn't need to, because here's the crucial truth. She never grasped. They did raise me to be like this. They raised me by teaching me that love had to be constantly earned. That being an integral part of the family meant endlessly doing things for them, constantly fixing their problems, and silently cleaning up their messes. They ingrained in me the belief that my worth was directly proportional to how much I could give, how much I could shoulder, and how silently I could endure it all. So yes, when I cut off the gas, repossessed the work vehicle, stopped paying the house payments, and pulled my name off their loans, I wasn't being cruel. I was simply returning everything they had given me. All the years of unspoken pressure, the suffocating silence, and the manipulative guilt all wrapped up and presented as parenting. My father once declared, "Family doesn't keep score." He uttered those words right after I had paid his second DUI fine. So I stopped keeping score. Instead, I simply closed the entire account. That same month, I started attending therapy. My therapist, a kind and insightful woman, asked me, "When did you first feel like you were responsible for your parents?" Without a moment's hesitation, I answered, "When I was 14. My mother had broken down in tears because she couldn't pay the electric bill. So I got a job sweeping hair at a local salon after school." That was the precise moment I understood I wasn't being raised. I was doing the raising. I was the one holding everything together. And all I had done now was grow up and walk away from the people who remained stubbornly stuck in their stagnant ways. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I felt a profound sense of clarity. Because the truth is, choosing yourself can often feel like a direct assault to people who have only ever viewed you as a means to an end. And I was no longer available. Not for fixing, not for saving, not for self-sacrifice. They had even renamed the family group chat without me. Threads I had initiated were now being used to gossip and strategize behind my back. Felicity, my cousin, sent me screenshots. She didn't even add a message this time, just forwarded their damning words. Esther. Heartless. We gave her everything. Food, clothes, a roof over her head. She got successful and forgot where she came from. Let me remind them where I came from. I came from eviction notices taped to the windows. I came from watching my mother fake seizures to secure bill extensions. I came from my father borrowing money and euphemistically calling it a gift. They claimed I should be grateful, but I had taken mere survival and transformed it into something far better. I took the little I possessed and painstakingly built stability, not just for myself, but for all of us. But they didn't truly want stability. They craved control. They wanted me to remain small, to stay perpetually thankful, to remain utterly dependent. Because my growth, my independence, forced them to confront their own choices, their own failures. And now, I was done playing that suffocating role. When I finally dared to stand up for myself, they labeled me cold, heartless, ungrateful. They conveniently forgot all the countless times I had paid for their dinners. It's a thoughtful holiday. Gifts I had bought that infused the season with a much-needed sense of specialness. The birthday parties I meticulously planned and paid for, even though they consistently forgot my own. They only remembered what I gave, never how relentlessly they took. Felicity messaged me again. I know it's messy, she wrote. They're still your parents. I began typing a heated reply, then paused, deleted my first indignant draft. Then I wrote, if you break someone again and again, you don't get to act surprised when they stop coming home. Then, with a decisive action, I blocked the entire thread and muted the insidious whispers of guilt. That night I posted one short, profound message to my small, trusted group of friends online. Boundaries don't make you mean. They just make the silence easier to live in. Within hours, messages poured in. People I knew, people I didn't know, all echoing the same sentiment. I needed this. I've been Serafina too. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. I no longer needed their twisted version of me. The version where I was the selfish daughter, the ungrateful sister. That manufactured version had never been real. I had rewritten myself, and this new version of me wasn't here to perform or to desperately earn forgiveness. She was simply here to live. It was Thursday. Rain tapped gently against my windows, a soft, rhythmic knock. I lit a fragrant candle, brewed a cup of soothing tea, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I simply sat still. I felt an unfamiliar, profound sense of peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from my mother. Serafina, it's your mother. Your father fell and broke his leg. We're at county hospital, no insurance. They won't perform the surgery unless we pay part of it up front. We know you're upset, but this is serious. This is family. Please, just call us back. For long minutes, I remained motionless. My gaze was fixed on the phone as if it were a ticking bomb, counting down to some inevitable explosion. I recognized that voice, that specific tone, the one she always used when she needed something from me. The one that, in the past, had always reeled me back in, not with genuine love, but with suffocating pressure. There was never an apology, just another manufactured emergency. I opened my laptop, pulling up a detailed financial spreadsheet. The truth was, I could afford it. I had the money. But then I opened another folder, one I had meticulously named History. Inside were a collection of damning emails, screenshots, and bank account statements. Proof of everything. The time they emptied my bank account without a word. The birthday they forgot but still charged dinner to my credit card. The $45,000 they had stolen and shamelessly called helping the family. I stared at it all, the evidence irrefutable. And just like that, their latest emergency no longer felt like mine. It felt like another cunning trap, a fresh layer of guilt carefully wrapped in the same old pain. So I didn't call back. Instead, I let the rain continue its gentle tapping. I remained perfectly still. I didn't write a check to the hospital. I wrote one to myself, substantial deposit into what I now affectionately called my peace. Fund a tangible promise that I would protect my newfound tranquility above all else. Even when guilt, that insidious whisperer, tried to sneak back in, and it did try. Guilt always finds a way, whispering, "You should help. You're the good one." But this time, I didn't listen. I slammed that door shut with a resounding finality. I texted Felicity. Tell them I hope he heals. But I'm not going to hurt myself again just to fix their pain. Tear didn't respond. And for the very first time, that silence didn't hurt. Okay? It didn't sting. It felt like a breath of fresh, crisp air. Okay. It felt like unadulterated freedom. That night, I slept with my window open a crack, just enough to let the cool air drift in. My phone was not next to my bed. No buzzing notifications, no late-night panic attacks. For once, I wasn't bracing myself for something dreadful. I wasn't. Waiting for a call, a crisis, or for someone to desperately need me again. I was simply resting, truly resting. It's because letting go of people who have never respected your worth that isn't being mean. That's choosing to live. And I was finally living, truly living, by my own rules. A few weeks later, I walked into my cousin Chloe's wedding. I entered with my head held high, my heart strong and resolute. I wasn't there to please anyone. I was there because Chloe genuinely mattered to me. She was the only one who had consistently seen me. Not as the family's perpetual fixer, but simply as Serafina. Even before I had established my career or found the strength to say no, I knew my parents would be there. I expected it. My mother wore a tight, gaudy dress she likely couldn't afford. My father leaned on a cane, sporting a rented tuxedo. Its limp looked more like a theatrical performance than genuine pain. The moment I stepped into the grand hall, I felt their eyes on me. Not warm, not loving, just watching, meticulously measuring me. I wore a sophisticated black satin gown, not to mourn, but to signal that I was no longer the malleable little girl they could effortlessly control. I wasn't there to broker peace. I was there as my own independent person. They didn't utter a single word, but their intense stares conveyed everything. Asterisk, talk to us. Fix this. Do what you always do, asterisk, but I didn't move. I didn't shrink under their gaze. I calmly took a seat at a table with Chloe's friends. I laughed loudly, a genuine, uninhibited sound. I danced with unbridled joy. I allowed my happiness to be a quiet, defiant rebellion. A silent declaration. You don't get to decide how I feel anymore. During dinner, my mother walked past my table. She paused, her hand trembling slightly, resting on the back of my chair. You look different, she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. I met her eyes, my gaze steady. I am, I replied. She started to speak again, but I gently raised my hand, cutting her off. I'm here for Chloe, not for you. And that was enough. Her eyes glazed over, but it wasn't from sadness. It wasn't grief. It was because, for the very first time, she saw what she had irrevocably lost. She saw me, not the compliant version of me they could effortlessly manipulate. Not the one who always gave in and continued to help. I was no longer their rescue boat. I had transformed into a lighthouse, shining brightly from a distance, unyielding, safe, yet utterly untouchable. During the wedding toast, my father raised his glass and looked directly my way, as if expecting me to do something, smile, nod, offer a gesture of peace. But I didn't move. I didn't lift my glass. I didn't pretend that anything was okay. Peace doesn't arise from acting as if nothing traumatic ever happened. Peace comes from navigating through profound pain and then making a conscious decision not to carry someone else's burden any longer. I was unequivocally done carrying theirs. That night, I danced until my feet ached, until they throbbed with exhilaration. I sang along to the music until my voice was hoarse, until it cracked with the sheer joy of liberation. And when the celebration finally drew to a close, I left without a single goodbye. When I arrived back at my apartment, I performed one final act of detachment. I turned off the very last automatic payment from my past, from my childhood. It has been a year now. A full year since they callously stole $45,000 from me. A year since that devastating voicemail fractured more than just my trust. A year since I stopped picking up their calls and instead started answering my own deeply neglected needs. The guilt, that persistent nagging feeling, doesn't hit me the same way anymore. It used to feel like a blaring alarm in my chest, loud and acutely painful. Now it's just a quiet, distant noise I can effortlessly shut off with a resounding truth. And the truth is, I gave them far more than mere money. I gave them unrestricted access to my heart, and they treated it like a bank account, a credit card they could swipe thoughtlessly, with no apparent limit. But that card, I am proud to say, is now firmly closed. I've built something entirely new for myself. My own peaceful apartment, my own thriving business, and a circle of friends who don't wield the word family as a weapon. Friends who don't drain my energy to feel complete, who don't need something tangible from me just to stay close. This year on my birthday, my phone didn't ring. There was no card, no insincere text message from them. Nothing but a gentle knock did come at my door. It was Chloe, standing there with a beautiful cake and candles. She looked at me, her eyes filled with understanding, and whispered, "You were never the problem. You were just the first to escape." We lit the candles together, not making any wishes, but simply breathing. Because healing isn't always a loud, dramatic event, sometimes healing is choosing not to open the door, even when loneliness comes knocking, wearing a face that unsettlingly resembles love. I stopped chasing blood ties. I started consciously choosing soul ties, the kind of people who don't demand your energy just to feel whole themselves. It's the kind who call you not because they desperately need help, but because they genuinely care. My mother still posts vague, self-pitying updates online. My father still plays the perpetual victim in family discussions. But their voices no longer echo in my life. I've meticulously constructed walls made of self-respect. And now, I truly don't care what they say because I don't belong to them anymore. I belong fully, finally, and freely to myself. Life lesson. True freedom and peace are found when we set boundaries, even with those we love, and prioritize our own well-being over enabling toxic behavior. Sometimes, the most loving act we can perform for ourselves is to walk away from relationships that consistently drain our spirit and disregard our worth.